Right, all right. Third Phase of Moon, we're back and we're live. And we're getting people from around the world calling in, sharing their vital information. So we're going to do that right now. Let's get to the next caller, 575. We're live.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, Joe, you work for the Air Force, you say. Let's hear it. What's the story? Go ahead.
I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed at Holloman Air Force Base in southern New Mexico.
Okay, great.
A while back, you had another caller.
What did you do in the Air Force?
Say what?
What did you do in the Air Force?
I was an admin clerk. I sat in an office and took care of files and punched a typewriter and all this all the time. But
well, there you go. Somebody's got to do that work. Thanks for serving. Thanks for serving. Go ahead.
But what it was, when I was in high school, and I was originally from Texas, when I was in high school, I had a book that my mother had found for me somewhere. It was a paperback book that was called UFOs, Believe It or Not. And it was just case history after case history stories from all around the world. And there was one in there that was talking about something that happened in May of 1963 at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, about a round sphere that came down and hovered over a runway, and somehow they were able to capture the thing and drag it off into a hangar, and nothing more was ever heard about it. Okay. I read that like when I was in high school, never knowing that someday I'd be in New Mexico. And then years later, after I joined the Air Force, I got sent to Holloman. And when I got out here and started, got used to what goes on, I called my mother and I asked her to please send me that book from my old bedroom. And she did. And then I went around trying to check out, check up on this thing, trying to figure out where this was to try to see if it might still be out there. Well, it turns out that my squadron had a hangar that had a lot of computer parts, and this is the old computers that stood from floor to ceiling with the big reel-to-reels and all the flashing lights. And when we went over there to inventory parts one time, the only thing locking that hangar up was a padlock and chain on the door. And I looked across the road, and there was a hangar over there that had barbed wire rolls at the top like at a prison. And I asked my boss, I said, hey, if we have computer parts in here and only got a padlock and a chain protecting the door, what do you keep in that hangar over there? And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. They just keep junk in that one. And I said, well, it must be expensive junk.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I kept, started thinking like, maybe that's where it is, So I started going to In-N-Out Processing in different places, trying to figure out how to gain access to this place, and I was getting really close, okay? And then here's what happened. Here I am sitting in my office on the flight line. We had the F-4 Phantom jets at the time, and I worked for I was an airman first, that's 2 stripes, and this was May of 1974, okay? And my boss was a sergeant, and then I worked directly for a colonel. And the colonel that I worked for was the colonel that was sent to Takli, Thailand at the end of the Vietnam War to welcome the troops back home. Anyway, Colonel Farrell. But the deal is, he had gone off to play golf somewhere. My boss had gone to lunch. And this little office had the windows with shades on them and everything. The door in the back opened out onto the flight line. The door in the front opened into the hangar. And we always had the lights on because it was kind of dark in the office. And I'm sitting there because my job at the time was I had to retype the mobility plan for the 49th Fighter Wing. So I'm sitting basically doing this, and all of a sudden I was conscious that somebody opened the door, but nobody came in. And I kind of looked over towards the door, and I didn't see anybody, and I thought, well, that's odd. I know somebody opened that door, And so finally I stopped typing, and I got up, and I kind of walked around the desk to where I could see out into the hangar. And when I got over there, to my shock and amazement, standing right there in the middle of the doorway, kind of silhouetted in light from outer light from the hangar there, was an officer in dressed blues. And he was just standing there like at attention. And I kind of looked at this guy cross-eyed and said, "Can I help you?" And all of a sudden, this guy orders me to attention. Well, you don't do that, not in permanent party. You do that if you're reporting to the commander, if you're in basic training or outside saluting another officer, but inside you just don't do that. And it kind of took me by surprise, and I said, "What?" And then he screamed at me, "Soldier, attention," and I jumped to attention, you know. And
Command.
This guy started, like, screaming at me, and I'm, like, freaking out, you know, because I don't know what's going on. And basically, the guy told me that I was getting too close to something that was bigger than the both of us, and if I valued my military career and or my life, to cease and desist immediately. "Do I make myself clear, soldier?" "Sir, yes, sir." And he says, "As you were," and he's closed the door and he was gone. And
wow.
I sat there, I don't know how long I stood there at attention thinking I just had my life threatened, you know. And I was freaking out, and all of a sudden I kind of crumbled on the floor, and I got up, and I'm trying to think, I got to tell my boss about this, and what information do I have to give him? Well, I wasn't for sure if he was a major or a colonel, because he had the gold things on his shoulders, but I wasn't sure which one it was. I couldn't see too well. He had a name tag, and there was three words on the name tag, but the only two I could make out was a James and a Michael. And so I finally composed myself and went back to, well, first I sneaked out of the hangar and went looking around. I didn't see this guy anywhere, you know. So I went back into the office and started typing again. And about half an hour later, my boss comes charging in the office. When he did, I jumped up at attention and knocked the typewriter off on the floor and broke the curve. We're talking the old-fashioned type anyhow. So my boss gets all freaked out as to why I'm freaked out, and he sat me down, and so I started telling him all this, and he got all upset and all this. He says, "I'm going to go find this SOB," and he takes off. He said, "You lock the door. You don't even open it for the colonel." Well, I would open it for the colonel, but I locked the door, and nobody came until he came back, and he said he looked over the whole base and went to headquarters and everything, and he couldn't find anybody that matched that description they were on the base. And he kept looking, but he never did, and I said, "Well, that's it for me. I got 3 or 4 more years of this Air Force, and I don't want a firing squad, you know, so I just let it go." Well, you'd think that'd be the end of the story, right? Wrong. 20 years later, I'm in Tularosa, New Mexico. I got a recording studio. I'm a musician. And I was down in the studio working on a tape, and I got up and I ran to my bedroom to go to the bathroom. And as I went to the bedroom, the TV was on, and the Montel Williams show was coming on, and I heard him mention that the subject was UFOs. So I immediately ran over and got a blank VCR tape and stuck it in the VCR and pressed play record. And I sat down on the end of the bed to see who was on the show. Well, he started introducing the different people on the panel. Robin Lazar was on there from Area 51 fame, and Sheila McRae was on there. She was the wife of the lounge singer, saying that her husband saw a lot of strange things going between Vegas and New York City in flights, and 2 or 3 other people. And they got to the last guy on the panel. There's some chubby guy sitting there with a mustache and a Hawaiian shirt on, you know, like Hawaiian shirts. Anyway.
Sure.
And when this guy spoke, I fell off the bed. I swear to God, it was the man that threatened me 20 years before. And I got it on videotape. And the guy is still around today, and he's one of the biggest debunkers out there. He's a retired major, and his name is Michael James Magaha. You can look him up on YouTube. He's all over YouTube.
And this is a guy that threatened you to, like,
he's the guy that stood there face to face with me and threatened my military career and my life for trying to find that UFO.
Well,
now he's all over everywhere telling people, oh, UFOs don't exist. There's no such thing as UFOs. BS.
So he's trying to cover up the UFO phenomenon. We need to get the hell out of here. And now he's out there telling people that UFOs don't exist.
Right.
And this guy's name, again,
I'd love to face that guy face to face today and go head to head with him.
Absolutely. You know what? I'll try and reach out to him, get him on the show. If he wants to debunk UFOs, I want to have him.
That'd be fine. He'd probably deny the whole thing.
Well,
typical
you just kind of never forget a face when they threaten your life.
Yeah, I know. And that voice, you know.
So let me ask you exactly, where, again, was this base? And when did it happen?
Well, I'm here in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and Holloman is approximately about 20 minutes from where I am right now. I live out here at the golf course, in case anybody I know is listening in. I'm retired now. I'm like 67.
And this happened a long time ago. They got other fish to fry, too. So
I know from listening to your show, a lot of people don't care much for MUFON, and you know, it came along years ago, and I joined them as a field investigator and this and that, and you know, and then I don't know, a while back, probably about a little over a year ago, I get links to their website, and some story came up on their website, and I went down and I wrote to the guy and made a comment. And all of a sudden I get an email from somebody from Alabama wanting me to talk to them, and so I called the guy, and the guy swore up and down that he was the state director for Alabama, and he was on his way to Irvine, California for the big symposium they had there. I guess that was last summer. And when he got back, he wanted to do a full interview of me, of my story. And he called me, and I did a 2-hour phone interview with him. And he said I'd be contacted by somebody else, but so far nobody's ever called.
Typical. Yeah, you know, this is...
So I told, you know, bits and pieces of this on the chat line to several of the people here, and everybody keeps saying, oh, Joe, you need to call. And I called one time before, but... because there had been another fella that had seen something similar with his mother out around Holloman, and I was trying to get in that same day to find out who he was and to find out if it was in the same time frame when I was there, you know. But then that day, that lady Chalice called in, and nobody else called in after that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just took up the rest of the show, but you know how that goes. Every Friday we pull this off, and it's really amazing to talk to the public. And if you don't get in the first time, we'll get you in. Just keep trying, people. We can't get to everybody in one show, but I'm sure glad that we got you on tonight because this is incredible. Let me get this up. Let me make one other quick comment, okay? You're probably familiar with another well-known figure, Stanton Friedman. He's a nuclear physicist and a science writer, and another fellow, Don Berliner, and together they wrote one of the books about the Roswell incident. There was 2 books, Roswell Incident and Crash at Corona, and I forget, they wrote one. And they used to come out here a lot on fact-finding missions and go to Roswell a lot, and they had a local radio show here one time back on Wednesday nights in those days. This has been like 20 years ago. And I called in and couldn't get through, and then they told everybody they were staying at the Best Western, and so I called over there after the radio show, and Stanton's line was busy, so I talked to Don Berliner, and I talked to him for like 3 hours on the phone, and when I got done, he told me that I was one of the 5 most influential people in New Mexico on the subject of ETs and UFOs that they had ever met in the state of New Mexico. And they gave me 2 Watts lines, one to Quebec, Canada, and one to Washington, D.C. And I used the one to Washington, D.C. one time to talk to Stanton, because I met a lady in Alto, New Mexico, which is up in the mountains about 30 miles from here, and she wrote a book about the abductee experience, and you can get it on Amazon today still. It's called Healing Shattered Reality. Her name is Alice Bryant, and it happened to her grandson. He was implanted.
Well, that's cool.
So,
that's cool.
I've met a lot of people, and I've seen stuff ever since I was a little kid. And my mother used to tell me that, before I was old enough to go to school, I was always, where's Joe? Well, he's outside. Well, it's dark outside. Well, somebody go get him, And I'd be outside staring at the sky, and every time they would say, you got to come in, that I'd always point to the sky and say, home.
Well, you know what? This is what I want to do.
I don't personally remember that, but I remember my mother telling me that all the time, So
good advice. Good advice. Moms have good advice about this stuff. One thing I want to do, I got a few more minutes for one more caller, but I want to get your name and this kook's name. Who's this guy that threatened you?
You want my full name? I have nothing to hide. My name, first name is Joe, middle initial C, last name Weidner, Weidner. It's the same as what's on the chat line there. I use my real name. And the other fellow, he's a retired Air Force Major, Michael James Magaha. I think that's Magaha.
Okay, man. Wow. Joe, you did good. We're going to look into this. We have your phone number. We'll keep in touch, man. We'll keep in touch.
Okay.
Incredible story.
Thank you, Blake. You do incredible work. I really appreciate what you're doing for people like us that wouldn't have a voice otherwise in the whole world. Keep it up, man.
No problem, man. No problem. I got a feeling many people from around the world, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people are going to hear this, and they're going to scratch their heads. Who is this Michael J. Magaha? We're going to find out. That's what we're going to find out. That's what we've got to do. People, help me. Let's get to the bottom of this. 253. We've got a few minutes left. Welcome to Third Phase. 253, you there? 253 just dropped out. Okay, we're going to try this. We're going to try 330. 330, you there? All right. We might run out of time. Might not be able to get to. We'll try 805. 805, you there? Yes. 805, you there? Okay, I got 2 805s online, so we're going to try this 805. We'll try this one. Hello,
Blake.
You there? Yep,
yes,
gotcha. Yep, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you, Blake. I sent you guys an email. Didn't know if you got it or not. Okay, I need to tell my story. I need to tell a few things that's been on my mind for years. Okay, about 7 years ago, I'm going to tell you the main story first. 7 years ago, I was sitting in my living room, and all of a sudden, I had this rolling wave sensation in my head, and I came up with this invention or idea in my head. Don't know where it came from, don't know what it was. I turned to my fiance at the time and her son, and I told them my idea. When I told them my idea, they were literally in shock. They could not say anything for like 15 seconds, wondering how I came up with this. I didn't. It came to me as if it was telepathically sent to me. I like to say...
What's the idea? The idea. Good ideas come in.
I don't know.
You don't
but
know.
What I remember, and this is the story. What I remember was it was the greatest idea since even better than Steve Jobs, okay? Now, I told them the idea. They said to me, oh, you should write it down. I didn't. I have a good memory. I didn't write it down. The thing was, is I woke up the next morning without a clue of what my idea was. I remember everything I said before. I remember everything I said leading up to. And then that idea was blank. And I remember everything after. So I woke my fiancée up and asked her, hey, do you remember what I asked you, or the idea or invention that I told you last night? And she looked up. And I said, oh, my gosh, she doesn't know. So now we have a 14-year-old son that we can go ask, who should have a good memory about these things. When we asked him, he did not know either. Completely blank.
Okay.
I went to go.
You know what? I got a feeling where I know where you. Yes, this is.
Do you know where I'm going, Blake, with this?
Suppressing thoughts. They're suppressing thoughts. You got a good idea. You want to share it with somebody.
Blake,
boom, boom, boom. The next your memory. They wipe it, and there goes that good idea. We're humans,
Blake,
that have
something to change the world.
I got a feeling. Yes. I know. I have a big.
Blake,
let me tell you,
You just said it right now. You know what I think? When you told me about HAARP, and I've been watching your show on YouTube, when you said something you said about HAARP, that triggered me. I think they are blocking signals from us, from somewhere that's being given to us to use. That's my opinion on HAARP. I really do.
No, it's so weird because you have your wife, and your wife and your 14-year-old son at the time, they remember you telling them this.
Yes,
they recall it,
remember.
And then all of a sudden they're just like, I can't. It's on the tip of their brains, and they're trying to figure it out. It's like a distant memory that you can never recall. And I got a feeling this is, this is something that people are dealing with on a daily basis.
Blake, it feels good for you to say that. You are exactly right, and that's been my feeling for years.
Well, we got it out.
I didn't think you would take it this way.
I'm glad you got your caller in because you're calling.
Me too.
Something that we need to get out. There is a mind control out there. They're wiping people's inventions, their ideas on how to change this world for a better way. He says that this could have changed the world, people. It could have. You could write things down. Maybe some man in black guy will come and take it away. You just never know. There's a lot of suppression out there. You know, one good thing they can't suppress is good videos. So if you got a good idea going, get your video going, record that, and then upload it to the internet. They can't suppress that, people. This is Blake Cousins. Stay tuned. Week Friday, and new information coming into Third Phase of Moon as we break news from around the world in regards to this UFO phenomenon happening right now, people. Thanks for joining me. Incredible show. Keep your eyes on the skies, everybody.
I'd be in New Mexico, and then years later, after I joined the Air Force, I got sent to Holloman, and when I got out here and started, got used to what goes on, I called my mother and I asked her to please send me that book from my old bedroom, and she did. And then I went around trying to check out, check up on this thing, trying to figure out where this was to try to see if it might still be out there. Well, it turns out that my squadron had a hangar that had a lot of. A while back, you had another caller.
What did you do in the Air Force?
Say what?
What did you do in the Air Force?
I was an admin clerk. I, sat in an office and took care of files and punched a typewriter and all this all the time. But
well, there you go. Somebody's got to do that work. Thanks for serving. Thanks for serving.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
But what it was, when I was in high school, and I was originally from Texas, when I was in high school, I had a book that my mother had found for me somewhere. It was a paperback book that was called UFOs.
All right. Third phase of moon, we're back and we're live. And we're getting people from around the world calling in, sharing their vital information. So we're going to do that right now. Let's get to the next caller, 575. We're live.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, Joe, you work for the Air Force, you say. Let's hear it. What's the story? Go ahead.
I was in the Air Force, and I was stationed at Holloman Air Force Base in southern New Mexico.
Okay, great.
Computer parts, and this is the old computers that stood from floor to ceiling with the big reel-to-reels and all the flashing lights. And when we went over there to inventory parts one time, the only thing locking that hanger up was a padlock and chain on the door. And I looked across the road, and there was a hanger over there that had barbed wire rolls at the top like at a prison. And I asked my boss, I said, hey, if we have computer parts in here and only got a padlock and a chain protecting the door, what do you keep in that hanger, believe it or not? And it was just case history after case history stories from all around the world. And there was one in there that was talking about something that happened in May of 1963 at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, about a round sphere that came down and hovered over a runway, and somehow they were able to capture the thing and drag it off into a hangar, and nothing more was ever heard about it. Okay. I read that like when I was in high school, never knowing that someday